So Matt Gaetz was finally invited back on Newsmax after weeks of basically being blocked from conservative news. And in this interview, he had the audacity, the delusion to say that he's being investigated, not because he's a scumbag that did awful things, but because fundamentally he's a true, strong, outspoken conservative and Trump ally.
But they always come for the fighters, Grant. Donald Trump Jr., Rudy Giuliani, Steve Bannon, Matt Gaetz. It's never the meek that they come for. It's always those who are fighting hard for the America First agenda, and I've got a lot of fight left in me.
And so I'm not making any of that up. That's what he says there. He says, there's no evidence against me. None of the claims have any sort of validity. It's all BS. But fundamentally, the reason they're going at me is the same reason they go after Trump and Trump Jr. and Rudy Giuliani and all the rest. It's because we are real outspoken conservatives. We are America first. We are not weak. We are strong. Like he says, they don't go after the weak. They only go after the strong fighters. And essentially what he's saying is all of the investigations against Trump, Trump Jr., Giuliani, himself, everyone else like them, it's all politically motivated, implicitly from the left, from the deep state, from liberal media, and all these sorts of things. But this is really offensive because we've been covering it on this channel and so many other sources have been covering it. There is a lot of evidence against Gaetz. There's the Greenberg confession. There's the fact that Greenberg took a plea deal and that he basically decided to flip on Gaetz, which is something Greenberg's lawyer essentially admitted. We also know about Vintage 99 and we also know about the Venmo transactions to that person as well as other people, some of which were minors. Like, we know all of these things. And in a court of law, Gaetz still deserves that presumption of innocence. But in the court of common sense, there is a lot of smoke here. This is not simply conjecture and rumor. We know a ton from various reputable media sources. And again, there's a reason why until now, he hasn't been on any right-wing news channel and only Newsmax will have him back on. Fox basically ignores him 99% of the time. And while he was on Fox many times a week usually before this, he hasn't been back on Hannity in like a month since this story broke. There's a reason all of that is happening. And it's not because you're an outspoken patriot, because they've had Giuliani on and they've had Trump on and they've had Trump Jr. on many times, despite the fact that they were being investigated for a reason that their investigations, I think, have a validity to them, but they're not necessarily as serious as what you're being investigated for, Matt. And one thing above all, we really have to underline is that this started under Trump. This started under Bill Barr and Donald Trump. They had the opportunity to stop this if they wanted, if they felt it was politically motivated, and they didn't. Joe Biden and the Democrats and Merrick Garland did not start this. Matt Gaetz's scumbag attitude and his scumbag actions and behavior go back years. They knew about it under Trump, and Trump never stopped the investigation for a reason. One, because maybe at the end of the day, Donald Trump knew there's something here. And two, Donald Trump realizes that you don't want to look like the guy that helped Matt Gaetz get away with something so awful. Matt Gaetz, you're not a hero. You're not a patriot. You're not a champion of conservatives. You're a delusional creep.